No barest of margins this time. England are on top of the world. We're bringing you a remote podcast, putting faces to names. My name is Rob Taylor.
And I'm George Bottomley. You will call me Bott throughout.
Okay. Bott, how's it feel? We've done it again.
Yes, double champions, owning both the belts, to put it in a boxing terminology. It was really good. It was a good final, I thought, because there was particularly, we did the podcast last week, and we were saying shambles pending. We don't think we'll get a game. Got a full game. No rain really whatsoever. Maybe a couple of spots, and it wasn't straightforward easy. Like, I think if you looked at the scorecard, having not watched the match, you'd say, "Oh, that was an easy win for England." But I don't think it was. Really, we had to fight there, and England's greatest kind of match winner we seem to be producing now, Stokes, did the fighting. So it was impressive as always from Stokes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's that coin saying now: "Is it cometh the hour, cometh the great man?" Is it Michael Havertz who's adopted it? It's kind of like it's funny really, because there was people before this tournament, I think, who were actually asking, what does Ben Stokes actually contribute to this side? He seems to have lost his funk a little bit. There's an argument to say, has he ever really had that big hitting sort of dominance in T20 cricket as we've seen him in latter stages of Test matches, or in more recent times ODIs and World Cups for that. But he, on these big Australian pitches where boundaries were certainly not as fluent as they have been in smaller grounds or other venues across the world, he's proven that he's almost taught the world, I think, a different sort of aspects of T20, that it's not all just sort of hit and hope and who can blast the most and who can get the highest scores. There's actually still, if you want to say, proper cricket to it, where there's grit and you obviously bide it out and you win the game by ones and twos, instead of obviously going for the jugular and trying to smack the ball at the ground. It's been amazing. I said, I think, before, we'll come on to a little bit where England stand from this, but I kind of said before this tournament that if England could go on to win another ICC event, it would really put a stamp on themselves, and this era being one that we can look back on, as probably England's best ever, certainly in limited overs cricket. How did you spend the final? I mean, I'm wearing this Sri Lanka top today, by the way. I got it from Gaul. I don't know whether it's fake or not. It probably is. But to show solidarity to my Sri Lankan colleagues that backed England all the way. Certainly after England, well, they're not Sri Lanka out, but they've certainly, I think they quite enjoyed the India defeat. So that one's for you boys.
Well, I mean, not to get onto the era, whether it's era defining just yet, I suppose just to speak a bit more about the final, I thought Sam Curran, it was a final of two all-rounders, really, wasn't it? You had Stokes in the batting display and Sam Curran, who obviously, I think he had the most wickets for any bowler outside of the ones who played the extra matches to get into the Super 12. So I think Hasaranga was top and Sam Curran came second overall. But some brilliant figures there. I think he's really going to kind of become a white ball feature. He feels like he's starting to get a real reputation of someone who should be a starter in every 11 for us. He is a winner, much like Stokes is a winner. The fact that we didn't have Milan there, Milan for a long time has been one of the best T20I batsmen in the world. Stokes had to play that position that he plays, the nudge and nurdler, and I thought that shows our strength in depth. And then also there was an element of Chris Jordan's leadership I saw on Sunday, in the sense of Jordan hasn't been a feature throughout this World Cup. He's come in as Woods got injured, and some players would be disappointed at that stage in the career. He's no spring chicken. However, there was one moment, I think, where Harry Brook dropped a catch and Jordan went up to him and it was near the latter end of Pakistan's innings. Jordan went up to him and said, no worries about it. And his leadership, both with the ball and kind of around in the field and the standards he sets, I think he was. It just shows what the plethora of talent we have in the midst of our kind of this era. So it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's a good point you raised there. I think with Chris Jordan, he's been a big figure throughout the Morgan legacy, and I think obviously when Josh the boss, has needed him, he's relied on him in this semi-final and final. And if anything else, his fielding is just exceptional, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, what he brings in the field, and obviously with experience there, obviously meant a lot to him at the end. You know, I think he selected a certain bottle of red wine. He's been through this team. He's been through a lot. Yeah, for as long as he's been in the side, he's actually not, I don't think, experienced massive heights, has he? I don't think I'm right saying he wasn't in the last World Cup winning side, the T21. Obviously, will have been with the lows in India with the Ben Stokes final over. So I think it's I don't think we'll see Chris Jordan for many years beyond this tournament now. I think he's perhaps coming towards the latter stages of his international career. I know he does a lot of franchise cricket, but it was great for him to see. Great for him to obviously, you know, experience that success and take home the World Cup winning medal. At the end of that, with Sam Curran, mate, I don't know if you've been thinking this, but as we got towards the twilight zone of Jimmy Anderson and Stuart Broad, and we look at continuity, we look at how we're going to, carry on this legacy where bowling is, well, English bowlers offer much difficulty to touring batsmen. I kind of had a little look at Sam Curran and thought, is there something there of an opening bowler in Test cricket? I know some people get on the high horse about this, going, "Well, no, we've got someone who's established in this format, keep them there." Are you not seeing some new ball kind of stuff with the Dukes where, you know, you can have someone who actually offers, instead of having, we've seemed to develop this long tail in our Test match team. I'm getting a little bit of itchy fingers to get Sam Curran in that spot, perhaps when Anderson does call it a day. You're shaking your head at me. You never ever agree.
No, I don't agree with that one. I think Sam Curran's a white ball specialist, and in many ways, or maybe not a white ball specialist in absolute terms, but when I look at our Test side with Ollie Robinson coming through, Jofra Archer, you want to get him into the red ball side, Chris Woakes in English conditions. I don't think he'd be one that I'd be rushing into it. I think there's an element to say what we've done really well over recent years is saying that Jason Roy, Alex Hales, Liam Livingstone, Owen Morgan, Joss Butler, you're really good at white ball cricket. So maybe we give you your focus, like Adil Rashid has done. You focus on white ball and become one of the best white ball players there is. And just kind of carving up little avenues for development for players to play different formats is my preference. But I can see what he's saying. He's a winner. And I don't think he'd let us down in red ball cricket. I just prefer to kind of make him a mainstay in the white ball side and really let him have a run at becoming one of the world's best white ball all-rounders.
Just one thing you said there, you mentioned Jofra Archer. It's quite staggering, isn't it, how England won this World Cup? Breezed through the semi-final without Johnny Bairstow, without Jofra Archer, are two, you'd say, integral parts of pretty much every England format now.
You'd say they're two of the best in the world, but you'd also say Mark Wood, Dawid Malan, who got them to the semi-finals, weren't there either. So it is just, it's such an example of how much depth we have at the moment this tournament.
Well, I want to push you on this, Bott, because, you know, there's I think a lot of people, as soon as England won this, took to social media and said, this is one of the great white ball dynasties now. And it's obviously a lot of our friends from around the world have poo-pooed that. I think one thing that I think England have sort of moved into now, especially since Rob Key came into office, was that Rob Key was set on having, a little bit like you just described, having specialists. So keeping the white ball team separate to the red team, finding strengths of core players and fitting them in those zones, you know, almost like square peg, square hole kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And if you look at, if England, if you sort of said that, okay, you know, Morgan's been captain of the white ball team for many years and the Test team has always been a bit separate, not without its problems. It's allowed England to develop almost like 3 different squads. And I think Baparu's, I didn't actually have much time to get to know Ravi Baparu, but he's quite confident in himself when he commentates on TMS. And he came out and said that England could probably produce another team that would get to the semi-final. I don't think I'm being arrogant as an Englishman by saying that. England now have sort of set this blueprint. And I think that is where the legacy will come from, where they have sort of diversed the formats. They have gone with the times where you have to modernize the way you play. And with that, they've developed this backlog of almost like center of excellences, academies, where there is now multiple teams and multiple choice. And most importantly, Bott, there's continuity. You sort of all of a sudden, you look at players that could leave that squad like Chris Jordan, then you look at, well, You see how that they've obviously brought the chap that's missed it for injury. God, name escapes me.
Topley. Reece Topley.
Yeah, I know Topley's not 21, but you see how he's sort of now put his stamp on the team, and hopefully he can come back into that. You look at Sam Curran, you look at the transformation in captains. It's everything's paid off, and it's just so, I guess a little bit in English sport on English light. But where do you see it? Are you because I've got my own opinion on this. Are you putting this team amongst previous white ball dynasties?
I don't think it meets the Australian dynasty of when they won 3 World Cups in a row yet. I think to get to that level, they'd have to win in India. I think if they won in India in 2023, the 50 over stuff, you'd be starting to get close to that dynasty in terms of final of the Indian T20, winning the one in England, the 50 over, getting to the semi-finals of the last one last year, and then winning this one. If they won next year's 50 over competition, I think there's starting to bring round the conversation. I suppose what you would say is this has been a very a really kind of a period of fast evolution and change in the game, and England have been at the forefront of that change. So they start to become like one of the most influential sides that have ever been around in white ball cricket. But I do think they need that win in India to kind of really put themselves alongside that Australian side. What I would say is, for me, although it's a bit grim that we're starting on Thursday in a 50 over series against Australia, the next year in white ball cricket is about reducing our kind of focus on T20 stuff and starting to move the lens again towards the 50 over stuff, thinking about what we need in India. Do we need to give Rehan Ahmed or Matthew Parkinson or Liam Dawson some games so we've got that extra spinning potential in the squad? Do we need to convince Ben Stokes to come out of retirement of the 50 over stuff and maybe retire for the 20 over stuff for this year? Because I think Stokes would be massive to get into the squad in India, because the pitches will be tacky. You won't be able to play 100 million miles an hour. You'll have to have some experience. I think we could do with getting him back. And then I think it's about making sure that our fast bowlers are really ready for that tournament. Because if you had a bowling attack that included Ali, Rashid, Livingston as your spinners, and then supported by Archer, Wood giving you pace, Curran giving you variety with the cutters that he bowls, and then Stokes as a bit of a backup. Again, it's a decent bowling attack for an Indian pitches. We need to start focusing on that tournament, and I think if we do, we've got a really good chance of laying claim to being one of the best white ball sides ever.
See, I take a bit of issue with that, not on you personally, but it's kind of, you say that, they've got to win in India and stuff like that. We have seen since the sort of Morgan Revolution, if you like, a dominance across bilateral series. I don't think, fair enough, England have shown up to a couple of World Cups. They've always been in contention, even the events they've not won, they've been in and around the semi-finals, but they've been very, very effective in those bilateral series. And to do that over quite a long period of time, as you say, when the game is going for evolution, it begs the question, are they up for, would you say that, India, how do we get to this point? India have been criticised for playing old school cricket in this competition. Is the dynamic nature of this England squad something that puts them amongst the best? Have they took the game to a new level themselves?
I think they have taken the game to a new level. I suppose there's the levels in. So I put this in a different way. Kevin Peterson took the English game to a new level. The way he batted, the power that he showed. In many ways, he took the world game to a new level, the way he played cricket in tests, But
did Gilchrist not do that as well?
Gilchrist did it, yeah. But hear me out on this one with Peterson. Peterson, because of what happened in his career, meant that he didn't make 35 test hundreds. He made 23. So you probably wouldn't put him up there with the Pontings, with the Callises, with the Laras, the absolute cream of the crop. If you were putting together your
Post-World War II, sort of modern day.
Or even if you're putting together your post-90s batting lineup, Peterson probably doesn't make it in because he hasn't got 35, 40 test hundreds. But he changed the way people batted. If we don't win multiple World Cups, we probably won't sit up with that Australian side that won 3 World Cups in a row. We'll probably sit just a rung below that, where it's like they changed the game. They're incredible, such an exciting side, but they didn't quite win enough to be up there, kind of thing. Do you know what I'm saying? There's levels to it. And I think that if you won in India, that would give them that ultimate guarantee of way to be spoken alongside that Australian side.
Fair enough.
Because there have been, the Sri Lankan side of the 90s played the game in a different way when you had Jayasuriya opening the batting and stuff like that. But you wouldn't put them as like, if someone said, what's the greatest ever white ball sides, you might not include them in the conversation. So, or you include them in the conversation, but you wouldn't talk about them the same that you talk about the Australian side. So it's just, I think what I'm saying is the winner in me wants us to go again and say, well, this isn't enough. If you want to be one of the best sides ever, this isn't enough.
I think to sort of shelve that sort of thought for a little while and just to sort of look at how this team represents us as a nation. We've grown up, the year we were born. I remind people a lot, 1994. It's a pretty, it's a heartbreak sort of era across British sport, isn't it? The football team doesn't have much success. Only till recent years they've threatened to show any sign of winning anything, haven't they? We've kind of geared up for this sort of notion that England will choke, they'll get there, and they won't quite have the bottle to do it. I'm kind of getting that the England, hear me out on this one because this is really important that I distinguish the two. The England white ball setup is almost getting that feel of the British or the GB Olympics team, where they almost, you expect them to turn up and know that there is foundation there, there's structure there. There really is a blueprint now. And I think that they are a shining beacon really of how you sort of take something that is particularly struggling, you grow it to something fantastic. I know that we are financially privileged as a nation. There's no saying that, but it's how we utilise that. So that's just one point that I guess I've picked up.
Yeah, no, I agree. Is your phone going off? Because I can hear some feedback coming through. No, right.
No.
It's all right then. I'll let you off this time. So the tournament as a whole, let's get on to that. How did you find this tournament? Where would this tournament rank in terms of ICC events that you've watched in the past?
Well, I enjoyed it. You look from the Associate Nations, which I think have been gone missing, haven't they, in ODI World Cups? That was great fun to sort of see them and give them a platform, get to know some new players. I love that. I'd be lying to you if I said that the rain wasn't an issue, and the rain sort of put a downer on things. I know there was some tight games, but you're going to get that in T20 cricket. I do think we've got a little bit of a almost like a proper cricket syndrome. Syndrome's not the right word, but the fact where we've had a tournament that's not played behind closed doors, a tournament that has gone to, I'm going to say it, proper cricket stadiums of history, proper fans being there, some genuine life excitement around the tournament. There's been too many tournaments in Dubai throughout the COVID years. I harp on about this all the time, but I can't stand cricket in that region. To have things in Australia, historic grounds like Sydney Cricket Ground, MCG, the India-Pakistan game, I suppose, was a spectacle. It's been good. Would I say I enjoyed this more than the ODI World Cup in the UK? Probably not. Have I enjoyed other forms of cricket more than this? Definitely. Give me Ashes series. Give me past clips of cricket. But on the whole, great tournament, the best ever. I don't think so. You?
No, I don't think he's the best ever. In terms of kind of, if I changed the question slightly and said, is it one of the best ever T20 World Cups? I'd say it's been a good T20 World Cup, but I think the competitive balance, I think I said this on the pod last week, in terms of Ireland beat England, Zimbabwe beat Pakistan, Netherlands beat South Africa. Lots of, giant killing, and that's good for the game and growing the game. I think there's been a heavy reliance on India and Pakistan fans to fill out the stadiums. That's maybe a reflection of how T20 is viewed across the different cricketing nations, or maybe it's just a reflection of demand from those nations of cricket in general. I'm not quite as vociferous in it is good because it's in Australia versus Dubai, because I think there's an element to say that if we want to grow the game, we have to have a tournament in Dubai, and the next one's in America. That's had less cricket than Dubai has in the last decade. I'm quite excited about the one being in America, but you could equally end up with, I think, could you argue that the staleness of the Dubai and the UAE tournament was probably driven a lot by COVID rather than maybe the nations that it was playing in? We'll see when we go to America whether the atmospheres are any kind of different, and I suppose we'll be able to assess, if they're equally as stale. You'd say, well, maybe it is the fact that these cricket's not a major sport in these nations that you don't get the same kind of atmosphere. I think this tournament had one of the greatest, if not the greatest ever T20I matches in the India-Pakistan game. That's such a spectacle. I think to kind of the conversation that we'll probably have this winter in terms of the Test roadshow, the cricket roadshow that I would love to develop, particularly for those two nations, they could play anywhere. They could probably play on Mars and it'd be a full house. Like, it's just they love their cricket. And we should try and get India and Pakistan playing Test cricket against each other, because that is such a massive crater on the landscape of international cricket, and we need to try and rectify that any way we can. So and also I'd say, from a selfish perspective, the Australian public probably didn't feel this way, but the cricket was on a very good time for us to watch. So I don't know what that was like for other cricketing nations. Well, it'd be the same for South Africa, probably similar as you went to India and those regions. So in many ways, although so when I think of Thursday, the game against Australia starts at 3:20 in the morning. I will not be watching it. If this World Cup had been like that, with games starting at 3:20, I would never have watched any of the World Cup. So I suppose from a selfish perspective, I was grateful of the timings of the games as well. And maybe more day-night Ashes matches so we can watch them. So yeah, that's my takeaway.
You talk about, obviously, the South Asian teams propping up a lot of the support. I think obviously India and Pakistan, but Sri Lanka had good support, didn't they? Bangladesh, I think, carried good support. It makes a sort of question on this because, it's, I think you said in the last pod, didn't you, that you believe that India is the home of T20 cricket, not the origin, but the home, where it flourishes the most, where it's loved the most. And I suppose it's been quite funny, really, seeing the fallout of India after the England game. It was, I can't imagine, obviously, waking up to papers there, can you, after what happened there? We know what it's like to get, obviously, trounced and how our media reacts and how we act as fans, how we react. Is the IPL, and I don't need a monologue on this, but is the IPL hindering India in these tournaments? The same way people sometimes point out that the Premier League hinders England football.
Yeah, I won't give you a monologue because I think we discussed this last week after the semi-final. I think it probably is. They've got a vast amount of resources to try and understand how they fit all these pieces together in the jigsaw of their team. And also, by having the IPL, everybody expects you to be really good at T20 cricket. And if you come up short in a semi-final, it feels like a disaster. I think that India will change over the next couple of years in how they play T20 cricket. I think that we'll probably see a side that is more akin to the style that England play. But I think they're a great team to watch as it is. Hardik Pandya, Rishabh Pant, Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma, Jasprit Bumrah when he's fit, Jadeja, Ashwin. They're all household names. You'd all kill. If we thought about the 100, imagine having those players in the 100. Absolute mega superstars. So maybe they're just going through a bit of a Galacticos era where it's not quite coming together. But I think they'll win one soon enough. Right. So you weren't best impressed with that one. So we'll move on to Right, we've got on the agenda from you, ODIs, stick or twist, can we be asked?
Yeah.
Let's
Can
go
I build on that for you a little bit?
on,
I'm
mate.
not saying I dislike ODIs. There's talk now of, people say this is a brilliant tournament. It's what place ODIs has. And, if we're going to, the further suggestion is that obviously as the calendar stretches, are we going to have time for 3 formats? It's just whether does the ODIs now offer enough to justify its position to coincide with tests and with T20s?
Well, I suppose I'd push back on you to say, I suppose you're saying one of the best World Cups you've ever seen, or this victory does not.
Yeah. Try not to focus on me because I did say, this is not my opinion alone. It's just something, I guess, which is going to become a question, I think.
I'll focus on you. You said that this victory does not come close to the 2019 victory, 50 over. So I think that 50 over very much, from a cricketing fan's perspective, still has a home in the hearts of cricketing fans. I actually think that we just need to schedule better. So I think there can be a full year where you don't play 50 over cricket. If the next 50 over World Cup's in 3 years' time, and the 20 over World Cups in a year and a half's time, don't play any 50 over cricket. We'll park it. We'll just play 20 over cricket. And then and kind of cycle through it like that. And I don't think people are going to forget how to play this stuff. They'll just have to, pick it up, and they pick it up as they go anyway.
I know the pinnacle of obviously the game is always deemed as test at the top. Yeah. Would you say we're at a stage now? I've always personally judged this, and correct me if you think I'm wrong. Tests, ODI, T20 in terms of prestige. Do you think it's now just as simple, and we can perhaps make the cricketing community and the politics in cricket a lot less stress-free if we just sort of said test, T20 replacing ODI, ODI now becoming, I guess, the third, the bronze sort of format?
I get what you're coming at, and I do agree with
I'm talking about prioritization. I'm not talking about which we're throwing onto the scrap heap. You know what I mean?
No. I agree with the original prioritization, and I think I'm still there, kind of in my heart of hearts. That's the prioritization I've got. I think that T20 and 50 over have to be kind of together as one, and maybe that'll move on in 5-10 years, where T20 becomes in many ways, probably in 5 or 10 years, it'll become the gold standard, but it'll soon become the silver standard. At the moment, I think I'd like to get to a point where they're both silver standard, and we manage them in that remit of just not having too much cricket, not having this daft thing where we just had a World Cup victory and we're playing 50 overs in 3 days' time.
Yeah.
I think it's more about just getting the schedule so it is in a rhythm and routine that matches the World Cups. That's my preference.
Yeah. Be interesting to see what, after this, the impact of this tournament, what that, how that, I guess, progresses around the world. I think that the Associate Nations sort of performance will spur other countries to invest more in cricket. They'll see this as a certainly with some of the upsets now. If you're a semi-associate nation, if I can call them that, you're looking at that thinking we've got to set our sights on the next tournament where we're eligible for qualification. I think a lot of the talk was that, wasn't it? When associate nations were performing, it was like, well, if they win this, they automatically qualify for this. And that is a massive incentive, obviously.
Yeah.
But the incentive then starts to reproduce at the grassroots end, where it's like, what other nations will we see? I think, USA will enter the stage in a couple of years, and we will see cricket progress. We think this tournament has also, enforced the fact that, T20 cricket is the most accessible route for nations to come through. I don't think we're not going to get buckets load of nations queuing up to play test matches. They probably can't afford it. But that is, I suppose, one thing to be excited about. I think, will more teams sort of, affect the ruthlessness of this tournament where you had to win so many games? Will it make it easier for, people like West Indies to perhaps not come up up against some kind of banana skin like they did this time, maybe? But with the reward of that is that you see more nations, as we spoke about in previous podcasts.
I suppose there's two ways to look at it as well, isn't there? And this is kind of the ongoing battle of moving from the old world to the new world when it comes to T20. In the old world, T20 was seen as a gateway drug. Let's try and get people into cricket through T20. This will be the kind of bus that gets them up going. In the new world, people are saying T20 is going to be the gold standard product. This is going to be what is played. This is going to be cricket. And therefore, I think in many ways, that is the battle that we're internally having as cricket fans, because I would say we can't drop 50 over cricket altogether, because you want to get Holland playing T20 cricket and they beat South Africa in T20 cricket. And then as they get more investment, they beat them in 50 over cricket. And in 10, 15 years' time, they're playing test cricket because they've grown through those kind of longer and longer stages. Now, I don't think the game's going that way. And that will be, as we look to prioritise the World Game and the scheduling of the World Game, that will be a battle that we continue to have. And I think you're right, to be honest. I think 50 over cricket will probably be deprioritised and fall onto the scrap heap at some point.
I guess it's one of those things I've always thought about. We'd sort of experience this if England ever won the Football World Cup, is where you win something. I don't know if you've got this feeling, but I'm kind of like feeling a little bit now like, right, what's next?
Yeah.
Where do we go now? I want more. It's like sugar rush, isn't it? It's addictive. Winning becomes something that you want more of. It was satisfying, wasn't it? It wasn't nail biting. They just got the job done, and it's so un-English like. But you find yourself now looking at where does the nation progress as a cricket nation? What have we got coming up?
Yeah.
I guess for those that probably aren't as close to cricket as we have, can you sort of enlighten what comes next for English cricket?
So next on the horizon, Thursday, so that's 2 days' time, we've got a 3 one-day international game series against Australia in Australia. So
it's like mental, isn't it? Like Moeen Ali like this. It's like, what, can we not even celebrate this victory?
I know. I think in many ways it's a bit depressing. I can understand how sports people and cricket players can struggle with mental health at times. That have you had any chance to rest and celebrate? I hope that in many ways we play.
Like I'm playing. That's how exhausted I am by it. I feel like even us as fans have had a chance to sort of bask in this victory. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think in many ways, I hope it's the second 11 that gets played in that series, and we have a look at some players, and the players who didn't play in this squad get a run out, because I wouldn't like to think that I don't know, Chris Jordan or Sam Curran, and like
Mills
celebrating what you've done. Don't rush out there to get another game. Enjoy it. But that's the way cricket's going. It's a fast-paced environment. It's short, snappy. It's the Instagram era of cricket. And I suppose one development that we've seen today, white ball contracts for Somerset, he's rejected a first-class contract, and I suppose that's within his power. That's his choice, and I have no issue with that. But what do you think about that?
I'm not concerned in the slightest what Smeed wants to do. We're living in an era now where it is all sports a bit WWE, isn't it? It's a bit like I make an announcement, I'm doing this. The next day I'm doing this. You seen Cristiano Ronaldo today doing interviews with Piers Morgan. We are clickbaity, Twitter, TikToky sort of society now where announcements don't really mean that much. I mean, Ben Stokes has obviously, previously come out and said that, well, he has come out and said that he's retiring from ODI cricket. Will the temptation of him wanting to come and play in a World Cup again in India entice him in? He's a cricket junkie. He loves cricket. He loves playing for England. And there's nothing to suggest that won't come true. And with Will Smeed, there's nothing to say that he might turn around and go, you know what, I fancy playing in the Ashes. I want to play on the Boxing Day Test match. If someone wants to nail the colours to the mast, at an early age and try and earn themselves some good money, fair play to them. Cricket's good. We want to see people flourish. We want to see people, hopefully for England, making the effect that they want to. But, the game moves so fast for people to sort of think that whatever they decide is the final sort of destination of what they want to do. It doesn't concern me in the slightest, and I don't think people should waste the time sort of eating themselves up about this decision. Do you think the same?
I agree. In many ways, I think specialisation is becoming more and more common in cricket as a sport. Yeah. You look at Harry Brook, a similar age to Will Smeed. He'll be playing all formats, it feels, for England. He's going on that route. You look at Ollie Pope, he's just playing tests, a similar age. Ollie Robinson is probably similar kind of generation playing just Test at the moment. I think players will find their own avenues. You know, if you look at somebody like Hasib Hamid, he's probably never going to
evolve his game to be that
play in the franchise T20 leagues, but he could one day become like a great Test opening batsman.
Craig Brathwaite, that's the template. You know, exactly. It's the similar. You know, the story I've read about Craig Brathwaite. About, I don't want to digress too much about, you know, how he was this. There was videos of him at a young age, and his defensive, you know, acumen was admired so much. Specialization could actually enhance all the formats for the right reason.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And in many ways, specialization could keep all formats going because the players won't be burnt out the same.
Yeah.
So
we are literally writing the blueprint for the future of cricket on this podcast. If this is the first time you've actually tuned into our podcast, this is rare for us. We don't usually show our faces. We hope we're not scared you off. We very much, well, I certainly have a radio face. Maybe not so much this guy. But yeah, we've got a good winter. You know, if it's dark outside, there's things that we can hopefully do to keep you entertained. We've got a Christmas tour of Pakistan, haven't we?
Yeah.
This winter. There is obviously those ODIs if you're not all cricketed out. We've got a few guests lined up, haven't we? And a couple of other ideas up our sleeve. Anything from you, Bott?
No, yeah, it's going to be a busy winter. The nights have rolled in. It's getting darker and darker, more and more miserable in the UK. So it gives us more and more chance to turn our focus to improving what we do in the podcast. There's a big summer next year when it comes to the Ashes. We just talked about the 2023 World Cup. So we want to improve the product that we produce.
Yeah.
And we're looking forward to kind of bringing bigger and better things by showing our faces, having debates, speaking to really interesting people. We'll work hard behind the scenes. Rob does all the business development, as he calls it, does all the digging around.
It feels like we're trying to flog things.
Yeah, speaking to people. You know, you do all the
relationships. That's what you want to call it.
Go on, relationship building. Let's soften the tone. But yeah, that's what we're going to try and do. So we will see how successful we are in the coming months at living up to those promises, and we will be talking a lot of cricket in between.
Beautifully done. Thanks for joining us, folks. We'll see you soon.
Cheers.